Guys, welcome back to Brit's Book Corner. Today's video is going to be all about my 2019 NaNoWriMo experience and what I plan to do differently from 2019 to this year's Nano. If you don't know what NaNoWriMo is an acronym for National Novel Writing Month. I will be honest, I didn't know what it was. I am a member of lots of different Facebook groups that are writing related, and a lot of people were talking about Nano. And this was about October. So a lot of people were talking about Nano, posting the website, all that stuff. So I said, okay, I want to know what this is about. So I just decided to start researching what it was. And that's when I learned exactly what it was. I learned that National Novel Writing Month is a month where you spend 30 days and you write a full novel, 50,000 words. And I decided, hey, I can do that. Like, I used to write all the time. I can totally attempt to do that. It's going to be easy. I sat down and I figured out how many words a day I would need. And I just started figuring out like what my plan was going to be for my book and all this stuff that I was going to do for Nano. This was all happening about mid-October. So I was sitting here writing down character information, coming up with characters, coming up with a storyline. I was Pinteresting ideas on how to prepare for Nano, all this stuff. And I ended up preparing fully my version of preparing in 24 hours. In that 24 hours, I came up with my two main characters, my premise, my vague character arcs, my story arcs. All of this was vague information. And after that 24 hours, I was like, okay, what do I do now? How do I wait until November? So I didn't end up waiting until November. I decided the day after I prepared to start writing. I sat down and I said, okay, if I do this extra 8 days, what will I have to write every single day? And it was like 1,200 words, something right around in there. So I was like, oh, I can totally do that. So I started writing. And then as I got closer to November, I kept telling myself, these 8 days are going to be my buffer days. So if I get sick or if my kids get sick or anything like that happens and I just don't write in November, I have those 8 days that are going to count for my writing. And so I just kept telling myself these are my buffer days. And I knew that I was going to have 2 days where I wasn't going to write. I knew that there were going to be possible days where I was going to be sick and not be able to write. I knew all of this information that I thought was important. And I really didn't need those extra 8 days. I could have written my book. I ended up taking about 3 weeks, 21 days to write like 54,000 words. But it wasn't until about the last week of my 21 days of writing that I realized I was going to be done sooner than I thought I was. And there were days where I was writing a lot less than my word count goal for the day. There were days where I was writing a lot more. So I think all of that stuff was happening and it was just piling up, and taking those extra 8 days to start were really crazy. My NaNoWriMo graphs were all crazy because my word count at the very beginning was different. It was really just a learning curve for me. NaNoWriMo 2019 was a big learning curve. I never had attempted writing a novel in 30 days. I never attempted anything remotely close to that. So I was definitely learning new things. I was learning how to pace myself. I was learning how to track my writing. I was learning just how to stay focused on task, and I was learning all these new things because I have never been one to write one book solely from beginning to end without starting another project. And I did not want to start another project while focusing on NaNoWriMo. I told myself that I solely 100% wanted to focus on Nano solely. But I learned that I can't focus on things. So about near the end of my writing, I was struggling with figuring out what scenes I needed to write, what things I needed to do. So I started plotting out scenes. I originally started writing by pantsing. I had very little plotting done. I had a vague outline of my story, that I wanted. I had vague character outlines. And so I was just kind of pantsing my way through, but following a very loose outline. And about the last week, I was struggling getting my scenes figured out. I was struggling knowing what was needed to happen, just all of that stuff. And so I just started plotting out each scene. I'd write down notes that I needed for each scene, a vague idea of what needed to happen in each scene, and I was just kind of going from there. And I was plotting that kind of way, so I ended up starting pantsing, but finishing with plotting. And around that same time, another story idea came, and it would not leave my mind. Anytime I tried to sit down writing for my Nano project, I could not focus because this idea was straight in my head. What I ended up doing was whenever I stopped writing for my Nano project for the day, I started plotting ideas for this story that were in my head. I plotted every single aspect. I did a very strict story outline, very strict scene outlines, character arcs, character information. I mean, I had everything figured out. Rough ideas on word counts for each scene, each chapter, each plot point, everything. I had it all planned out. And I did this well in the last week and finishing off Nano. When I finished my Nano project, I threw all of my attention into this plot. And again, I learned that I'm a better pantser than I am a plotter for multiple reasons. With that whole plot that I did, strict plotting, I started writing that book. As soon as I finished the outline and I finished my Nano project, I sat down to write down, you know, that entire story. And I was 3 scenes into it and realized my entire outline and scene outlines were crap. Because I was outlining scenes, but I outlined the same scenes the exact same way 6 times. 6 times. I wrote the first 2 scenes, had them going. I looked at my scene notes for the next scene and realized I already wrote that scene. Did the same thing for the 4th, 5th, and 6th. I was like, oh my God. So I wrote the same scenes 6 times, and the scenes following those were right on track as they should have. So I had a 4-scene block that I didn't know what was going to happen. And because it wasn't in my outline, it wasn't in my mind, none of it was in there because I totally believed I had everything plotted out, I couldn't continue with the book because there was that block. And I am not a writer that can jump from beginning to middle to end and then follow in between. I'm not one of those writers. I have to write everything in chronological order. And so because I didn't know what I was going to do, that book, that story, that outline, everything had to be pushed aside because I couldn't figure it out. And this year, I'm asking myself, how can I take everything that I learned from Nano 2019 and prepare for 2020? I am going to do things a little differently. I am still going to do a loose outline, loose story outline, character arcs, all of that. I'm going to sit down and figure out all the loose, vague information I can about my characters, figure out their physical descriptions, find photos of people that inspire me for them, have a Pinterest board made for inspiration, for ideas for this book, and go from there. I do want to write an entire new story in Nano 2020. I don't want to focus on my Nano 2019 project. I want to focus on a new project for 2020. I want to approach it as, you know, late in October as I can, and I want to set a time and a date that I sit down and work on that. I don't want to start writing until November. I want to see if I could actually do it in November with the 1,667 word goal each day. I want to focus all of my attention without trying to plot on this book. I want to see if I can kind of vaguely pants my way through this. And I want 2020 to be a better year. I want to set better goals, just attempt it better, start it better. I know what worked from 2019 and what didn't work from 2019. So I want to apply all of that to 2020. As of right now, that's kind of how I want to approach Nano 2020. I do plan on making Preptober videos as well as Nano videos. throughout this year as well, something I didn't do last year. And I want to watch more nano-related videos, more prep-related videos. And I do want to read more in nano during nano, because I didn't read at all during nano last year, and I feel like if I would have read, I would have had better ideas and could have handled everything a lot better. So that's kind of what my plans are for 2020. If things change or whatever, I'll make better videos, and as time gets closer, videos will be going up about more about, you know, prepping and ideas and just all of that stuff.